There we go. We're live. How you guys doing this morning? Today we're going to be talking about. I saw a question on the on chat on one of the comments, and I know you guys are probably starting your day. You can do a replay on this, but if you got any comments, I'm going to be covering comments later on in this live. But I had a comment, and they were asking, what are signs of a one box failing? So that's what I'm going to be discussing today, is signs of a one box failure. And what you can do to prevent it. Just some information. You know, one boxes are the after treatment system. They're made to reduce the emissions coming out of the truck. A lot of people know this, and it's trending. They're trying to eliminate the systems and whatnot with the softwares, but that's something that you guys know that I'm against. Not only is it illegal, but it's just not consistent, and you can have some problems. And I know a lot of people are doing it, but what we've shared in my videos before is just failures that we see from the hack deletes. That's not what I'm covering today is deletes, but what I am covering is how you can tell when a one box is bad, because I had a viewer that was pretty curious about that. So we're going to be covering that today. Of course, when a one box goes bad, you're going to be having signs. It's not going to be something immediate. If you're worried about, say for example, you're purchasing this truck and you're worried about the one box having an issue, so you don't know. Good morning, how you doing, Edward? You don't know exactly what's going on with the one box. That the only thing you can do at that point is look for repair history. If you are able to take the truck out of the place where whoever's trying to sell it to you to a shop that has the software and is familiar with the softwares that I mentioned, the dealer softwares, if they're familiar with that, they're able to pull history to get an idea of what the condition is of that filter. But anything that's over 500,000 miles, you want to definitely have records of the filters being replaced, the DPFs. Now, the one boxes, you can't really get them serviced often. It's a weird setup, because usually the old system, the two filters, you got the DPF and the DOC. You would think that the one that's being replaced or cleaned often, I wouldn't say clean, now they're being replaced. The one that's being replaced is the one that would be, of course, the DOC, or the first one to experience the exhaust coming from the engine to this filter. But these DOCs are actually made onto the one box, which makes them very susceptible to getting clogged up, because you're not able to pull them off or replace them as DPFs or as easy as DPFs. Now, that's why it's important to take a look at what's going on with your after treatment system, and if you're getting any kind of warning lights. That's one of the biggest concerns there that I see, is the warning lights. So if you have consistent warning lights come on, these are just letting you know that the truck is either not running correctly, of course, and these aren't things that you can ignore. That's why you get the reduced power. One things that you can look for before actual, check engine lights are coming on. Another thing that's affected is fuel consumption. If you notice a fuel consumption that's getting high, and you notice, hey, well, I'm not pulling heavier weight, or nothing's changing your loads or whatnot, or the terrain, then you should have a solid baseline of what your miles per gallon is. And that's something that you can keep up through your computer. That's something that you can keep up, on your dash. That's something you can keep up remotely. So that's something important. You can even write down your gallon, write down the gallons whenever you refuel, and divide it by your actual mileage off the odometer. It will be even a more accurate reading than depending on some of these softwares that could or could not be correct, or you can just validate it by running it manually. So reduce power, reduce engine performance, warning lights, these are all signs. When you have warning lights, of course, when it comes to after treatment systems, a lot of times it's going to tell you to do a regen. Now, as I mentioned before, in a one box, the DOCs, which are the primary filters that are filtering the soot coming from the engine, are made onto the one box. They're made on there. They're not accessible. There is a step where you can pull the one box and blow it backwards to clean out the soot from the DOCs. But honestly, if they're having to pull these DPFs, to get all the soot out and replace them by a washed filter, I don't feel like that step is really useful. So it's best just to kind of avoid getting to that point where your DOC is clogged up. And we do see problems in the SCR system, which is part of the one box as well. The one box includes all this. You got your DOCs that are fixed and your SCR system, which is fixed. If you're not familiar with that, the exhaust system goes through your DOC into your DPF, and the remaining exhaust gets pushed through a SCR box, which that's where you have DEF. That's another thing that you want to look for, is if you have lines that are leaking, if your DEF pump is not working correctly and not pumping out enough DEF going to the one box, then of course you're going to get emissions faults, lower than efficiency faults. So what that's going to do is has you do more regens as well. That's not going to say, hey, I got a bad one box. That's going to say, hey, you know what, I need to get this looked at, or I need to get this cleaned out. Sometimes you get a lot of crystallization from the DEF that dries in that system. So sometimes you got to get that cleaned out. If you have any issues with the lines not being able to deliver enough to the one box, then you're going to have check engine lights as well, which is going to derate. All that's going to happen. So not every, as I mentioned in the video before, not every check engine light is going to be, oh, I got to change my one box. I got to change my one box. That's why I was bringing up, I did the video, the short video on softwares, because all the information that we gather when it comes to after treatment, troubleshooting after treatment devices, and that's something that I'm going to cover as well. It's available from the manufacturers whether it's a Detroit, whether it's a Volvo. There are licenses levels that I didn't mention in the video that I wanted to cover today, but I just didn't want to get off the subject too much. I'll get back to that later. So we're talking about reduced engine performance. We're talking about signs of your check engine lights coming on. Now, what can you do to, if you say you got a check engine light that keeps coming on, what you can do is first you can do a visual inspection. All right. So if you have any issues with exhaust leaks coming on the exhaust side of the engine, you're looking at the engine now. You can expect the one box as well. Sometimes you have to pull the fairing. That can be challenging for an owner operator. So if you would rather take it to a shop, it would just be easier for you, because they would know what to look for. Like, for example, at our shop, we have a lift. We're able to lift up. We can see up under the truck, up under the one box and everything, make sure it's not damaged from below or anything like that. And we have the tools to pull the fairings off. If you want to buy your own tools, pull the fairings off. Look for exhaust leaks. Look for the pipe coming from the turbo to the actual one box to make sure you don't have any leaks in the clamps. Signs of leaks are going to be, it's just going to be, you'll see the black soot coming out of it. It looks kind of like just shooting out the side. It's really easy to identify. You want to follow of course, looking at the turbo, looking at your exhaust manifold, which is the passenger side, making sure you don't see any of that black soot anywhere. You can also use a water bottle, soap and water. You guys checked out one of my videos, the shorts that we did. That was a video of Ivan finding a unloader valve that's on the top of a compressor. He found it was leaking, and that's usually what we'll do. We use a water bottle. That's how you can find leaks without putting your hands too close to anything. Soot is where you're going to look on the hot side. It could be hot, so that's why you don't really want to use hands to kind of figure. But the water bottle, spray it around your clamps coming off the turbo, because it builds so much pressure. The turbo builds so much pressure, pushing it to the driver's side. It goes through your air-to-air. Check your air-to-air for any damage. Make sure it's secure on there and it's not shaking, because it's shaking and it's hitting against things that can definitely put a hole in it. And if you have a hole in your CP or CAC, your charged air cooler, basically that boost pressure, you're losing boost pressure. And so when you lose boost pressure, you're definitely going to be burning more fuel, and you're going to be creating more soot, which is going to go down to your DPF and cause more problems on that DOC, which is fixed on the one box, and the one box is going to have to be replaced. That's basically what we're trying to avoid. So these are all good. This is all things that you can do on your own. Water bottle, soap, all on your intake side as well. You're following your intake all the way up to your exhaust, back to the intake side, which is the driver's side. Spray the intake where the manifold meets the block. all the clamps. These are all things that need to be checked out to make sure that your truck is burning all the fuel correctly and not creating excessive soot. Now, I'm going to keep moving on about the different things that you can look for. So say, for example, hey, I got a one box, I think it's going bad, but I'm not for sure. Okay, I do got to check engine light. It's making me regen a lot. I don't see any DEF build up around the box. One thing we notice when we do have one boxes go bad, they will rattle and make a weird noise. Say if you have this truck for a while and you've seen it regen before on, and you notice now this time it's having a different noise. Now I hear a rattling noise or just something different. That's an indication that a one box is going bad. Usually one boxes will not go bad under 500,000, but if you have a truck over 500,000 and you're concerned about that, these are items that you could be looking for. Hopefully this information can be useful to you guys. I'm going to be covering some more items in today's video. If you guys got any questions, make sure to hit us up. If you guys are in the DFW area, make sure to stop at TAT Express. We're in Dallas off of 20. You can look us up at 4140 Langdon Road, Dallas, Texas 75241. You can schedule an appointment at 972-225-3017. We have staff and technicians on standby ready to serve you guys with all the experience in this information here that I'm sharing with you guys. But as owner operators, if you want to get some of this stuff on your own, this is why I'm sharing it with you guys. And even if you're still coming into the shop, it's good to know what's going on with the after treatment systems. So let me move over here. Got a couple of things I still want to cover. So we talked about audible signs rattling. That's a big sign. If you guys had any one boxes yourself go bad and you want to share it in the comments, let me know who's watching. Let me know where you're watching from. Make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel if you're not subscribed to our channel. The weather's nice down here in Texas. I hope you guys, wherever you guys are at, hope the weather's nice. I know that work has picked up with just a lot of different construction everywhere with commercial construction. So I hope everyone is staying busy. I know produce and food's moving very well. So maintenance, we've talked about maintenance. Some new information I wanted to share with you guys today about idling. Okay, I know that we were talking a lot about idling and how not to idle, and I wanted to look up some information on, of course, you getting a cooling system on your truck so you don't have to idle. So everybody knows like Thermo King tri-packs, those are can get a little bit expensive. I see some electric ones coming out, so that's something you might want to look into. But at the same time, what I was researching here is now another reason why I don't want to get back too much on the software. I did want to talk about the software in the show today, but the software, dealer software or manufacturer software is very useful tool. Okay, you can do a lot of troubleshooting on these after treatment systems, so that you don't have to tear anything off. You don't have to take and look at anything too much. You can just basically run tests without pulling off anything, and it saves the technician a lot of time to try to pinpoint what's going on. That's the reason why I recommend using manufacturer softwares, the ones that actually made the after treatment systems and the one boxes. So that's a big reason why I move over here so I'm not covered up by the logo. Just trying to stay close to the computer, trying to get more information out to you guys. So we talked about codes. Now, less than optimal duty cycle is something that I've covered in some of my other shows. Where's my chat box at? Let me move it up here. Chat, where you at? I don't have my chat box on. I don't think I had it on my last show, but it's on now. Let me see how many people got on. Okay, we got yes, sir. Edward's here. How you doing, Edward? Guys, I know you probably can play this back. Peter's asking if the DOC is inexpensive. Now that's the expensive part. That's the part that's actually made onto the after treatment on the one box. So no, it's the DPFs are actually less expensive than the DOCs. If you're running with a older system that's just a diagonal system, which is back to back, they just run back to back like this. They're the older ones. They don't use them no more, but they were having more problems with them still. But back then we were able to get both of them either replaced or clean. But now, since today we're talking about the one boxes, that's basically how I see. Volvo has one boxes on the newer trucks. Of course, Cascadias has always come with the one box. The older styles are different, and you are able to change them out separately, and it could cost you less. But at the same time, these newer ones that are the one boxes made onto them, no, the DOCs aren't replaceable. They're made onto the one box. Okay, so proper DPF maintenance. Let's go back to duty cycles. When you're looking at duty cycles, we talked about not idling too much. And so we know that PTOs were something that I talked about before. What I wanted to look at here was, now you have optimizing your idle is basically what's available for Cascadias, and I know it's available for newer model trucks as well. So what you're able to do now is run different idling. Say, for example, if you're running idle, it's actually elevated idle. It's what it's called. So it's auto elevated idle. So during the extended times of idling, slow or fast, unburned fuel from the combustion process solely collects in the after treatment system. This is what I've explained. This unburned fuel is also referred to as a hydrocarbon. This is all the buildup that happens, is what we talked about. If too much of this carbon is accumulated in the after treatment system, the next drive cycle can result in a higher than normal after treatment temperature, and carbon builds up, burn off. So you're basically just causing more. So what auto elevate does is automatically increase the engine's RPM to maintain the carbon buildup from happening. So if you guys are already bumping it up, which I was saying, hey, don't do before, this is bringing the RPMs. It says with auto elevate enables a auto predetermined idle time. Okay, so of course these are going to be for different year models. So if you guys don't get the exact readings here, they could be different. So with automatically elevates the engine to 1100 RPMs for a GHG 14. So that would be a truck from anything that's made after 2014, and then anything that's made before 2017. It says it goes up to 1250 RPMs, and then anything past 2017 goes up to 1275, up for 30 minutes. So that's interesting. So auto elevate actually bumps your idle up. So for 30 minutes, the auto elevate idle features only enable for now with PTO, there's another one that they're using for PTOs as well. This is called, let me move over to the PTO. So what PTO does, which is interesting, before I move on to PTO, let's talk about this elevated idle. So basically elevated idle is what you guys are doing already. So if you're bringing your RPMs up to 1100 to 1200 to 1200 to 1250 RPMs, I don't see how many times you can do this. It doesn't actually specifically say how many times you can do this. Continued idle on auto elevate enables may result in engine shutdown. So it does still say that it's going to be monitoring the DPF at slight haze. Auto elevate will stop anytime and avoid. Okay. So auto elevate is basically just, like I mentioned, elevating your truck up. It doesn't say how many times it actually does it, but it's just basically saying if you get the light on, then of course you're going to have to regen. So if you do have an after treatment system and you're bumping up your RPMs to 11 to 1200 RPMs, 1275 RPMs for newer models, and you get a check engine light and you do a regen, as long as it's saying, I mean, if the code goes away, you should be all right. But it does say if your check engine light stays on and comes on, then of course you're going to have to get it checked out. And that's basically, this looks like it would help. Instead of just idling it barely enough, you want to idle it up to 1100. So guys, if you're in a situation, you still have to consider the optimal duty cycle, which is the percentage of the total idling that you're driving the truck or it's on for that whole day. So that's still in place. If you fall out of the duty cycles or the less than optimal duty cycles, which is high percentage of idling, whether you're doing this increased idle or not, definitely is going to have an effect on the filter. So on to the next item. We talked about how changing the ATS or checking the ATS. We looked at for duty cycle, not doing duty cycle. The 1200 RPMs or the auto elevate is pretty interesting. If you don't have time to come in and program that, which is basically what the software does, is you can come in and we can change the settings on that to do that. PTO also has a setting as well. Now PTO is basically the same, where you're able to run your PTO, but what it was mentioning is that it does let me double check it here. It actually is running your hydrocarbon doser. So if you're using a PTO, this setting allows you to actually kind of regen while you're using your PTO, which was very interesting. So if you're elevating your engine up, of course you're creating heat. You're putting a load on it with the PTO. So of course that engine is creating more heat. When that happens, of course, you're creating more heat. So when you're dozing, now they actually allow you to doze at the same time. You're actually cleaning the filter while you're sitting there using your PTO, which is an interesting setting as well. That's another reason why I mentioned the softwares that we use have all these functions that you have access to. And not everybody is going to be able to do this with aftermarket software. I know that aftermarket software may be cheaper for you guys and you can cover all these trucks, but it's not ideal because, as I mentioned, look at these different settings that you're going to be changing. When it comes to after treatment systems, say, for example, we have somebody come in our shop and they have a one box giving them issues, or somebody that's something that's giving them a frequent regens. The softwares that we use are going to allow us to check intake pressures, check for low fuel pressure, low oil pressure. We're going to be able to check DOC inlet pressure. We're going to be able to check the outlet pressure. We're also going to be able to check temperature at the one box, actually running a regen and seeing what the conversion is coming out of there. And this is all before tearing anything down, okay? This is not, let me take this off, let me check this. Now, say, for example, there's an intake pressure difference, or it's showing it's below the normal. This same soot that builds up in your filter is going to build up on your intake. It's going to build up on the sensors on the intake. That's going to be able to cause some problems too. If you have a built-up sensor with a lot of soot, you're not getting the right pressure. The ECM just doesn't automatically adjust. All it does is, hey, I'm going to dump more fuel because I got this much pressure coming in. This is how much fuel that I'm going to actually dump out. So that's the programming that ECMs have. So if you have a sensor that's clogged, that's definitely another item that we check for with this software. I haven't used the other softwares that some of the comments came in. I haven't researched that software, but I did have a issue with just using aftermarket software because of not getting all the information that you need, especially when it comes to troubleshooting after treatment systems. So some of the older models and even some of the newer models, they still have differential pressure sensors that read the difference of pressures in different areas. Either it's going to be on the one box or it's going to be on the EGR from the EGR cooler. These sensors as well get clogged up and will cause either the EGR to come on and off, or have you say, hey, I need a regen, when really I either have a clogged sensor or hose that could be corroded. Anything over 500,000 miles, you got to understand that engine bay gets hot. Going throughout the seasons is not really light on all that material, so definitely can cause some problems. So I hope this information has been useful for you guys. Make sure to hit that like button, and if you're gonna replay this later, just make sure to hit that like. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna get to guys some of your comments. I'm sorry I didn't have chat on earlier for the guys that checked in earlier. I moved around on some of the images, so I didn't move the chat box back. If you have like a super question or you want to hit us up on super chat, you can utilize that super chat. I appreciate everybody that's joining us today. Yeah, so we're talking about after treatment systems. Right now, we're talking about the softwares. That's kind of why I released a video on softwares, just because the softwares that are needed to run these tests, especially if you have, like say for example, your EGR valve. We want to check to see if your EGR valves can open and close correctly. I'm not sure if all that other aftermarket software can do all these different functions and change all these different parameters. If we're talking about, say for example, speed limiters. Some trucks are coming on with speed limiters that are buying them from fleets, and they want to take those off. So definitely something to keep in mind. So another thing we can look for DPF maintenance, of course, everyone knows about your air filter, but that's just another reminder of air filters. If you're not getting enough air, whether it's a leak, an exhaust leak, or a boost-to-boost leak, or you're not getting enough air coming in, or if it's dirt, then you can definitely cause some damage with an air filter, especially if you're in any dusty areas that has a lot of dust. If that dust ends up bypassing that filter and getting into that intake, it's just going to scuff up those liners and can cause premature engine wear. So air filters are really important. I know that they have the restricted air indicators. We haven't had a lot of luck. I haven't seen a lot of luck with those air filter reader indicators. They don't seem to be. What I would say is I wouldn't rely 100% on those. I would go by when's the last time I changed my filter? Pull it off, inspect it, see if it's full of dirt and it needs to be replaced. And especially, don't forget, if you do filters, do your cab filters as well, for your cab and your sleeper and all that, so that you don't have clogged evaporators, and now you have issues with your AC system. So we talked about we're talking about DPF and DPF maintenance and how you can tell one box is bad. Now, a good thing is one boxes are more available now. I don't know if you guys have noticed that parts has become a little bit more available now. We've had a little bit more of a fix in the supply chain, which is I've seen that across the board, whether it comes to automotive parts or semi-truck parts. It looks like they're being more fluid. Now, the price is not cheaper. Of course, there's not too much of a relief there on the price with parts, unfortunately. But at least we're getting parts in, and we're not having to wait too much time. So if you do have a one box that's acting up, and you've been holding off, definitely get it checked out. So we talked about how to check for it. We talked about, we did talk about how to use your soap and water and inspect your DPF, make sure you don't have any exhaust leaks. The after treatment system is very particular system. That's kind of why I was mentioning if you do suspect a problem, more than likely it's going to be best to get it actually checked out with software, manufacturer software, to definitely reduce what's going on. Because another test that can be done is a relative compression test. Now, a relative compression test is, back then for older engines, you have to do a manual test. Now the relative compression test allows us to do a compression test of the engine to see what the condition of the engine is. So for example, there is a tolerance of 75%. So if you have a difference, if you have a cylinder that's less than 75%, then that's considered need to be repaired. Now, you can run a truck that's a little over 75%. We had a truck that came in that he had low compression, and we did a valve adjustment. So the valve adjustment brought his compression up, but it wasn't the same all the way across the board. So for example, all his other cylinders, most of his cylinders were doing over 90%, so he had one cylinder at 85%. Now that's still above the threshold of 75%. So he denied wanting to go any further, which that's fine. I'm curious to know what the fuel mileage is on the engine. So we're going to be checking back with him. But checking that out is just like an indicator of using the software. I'm not sure if the aftermarket software that some people were mentioning on the video, can do these, or any other aftermarket treatment software. That's why I always recommend using dealer software. And as I mentioned earlier, I did want to bring up that there are different levels of licenses when it comes to purchasing these. And these licenses, you can get the ones that I gave you, the example that I gave you in the video is a pro license. So that means we can do programming, we can do of course parameter changes, just unlimited download. We can do downloads from the servers to update ECMs or update the ACMs, which is the after treatment computer. If you guys aren't familiar with that, the computer is separate. You have the ECM that communicates with the after treatment system. So the after treatment system has its own computer, and you also have a CPC, which is located in the truck. So all these computers are communicating with each other. This is why this is why I also recommend, this is with every truck, and this is also another reason why I don't recommend aftermarket software, because of the fact that you might you'll be having limited access to things, or limited capability, which is something that just sucks if you're spending all this money on software and you're not able to do, hey, well, I gotta get something. Even with a regular software, some of the items you might not be able to do. There is limited access to what you can do on a computer, on a semi-computer, and that's due to no one tamper proofing or just being tamper proof. So they do have limited access on what you can do to these ECMs. So we talked about what we can change on with the softwares. We talked about what the tests that we can run. We talked about the audible items that you can look for if you have issues with always regenning all the time, and you're not always, say for example, you replaced the DPS just recently, and you replace them. We're not talking about getting them cleaned out. Bake and blown is a process that's not it's no longer recommended by the manufacturers as a proper way to clean these filters. So we're not doing that no more. Give me a second. I just need a breather. Hope everyone's doing fine this morning. Appreciate everybody that's joined us. I see we've got some chat, got some people. All right, we got some questions here. Good morning. Jason checked in. Good morning, Jason. Sounds like a lot of wear and tear. Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of wear and tear on these engines if you're not following maintenance, or if you're not following optimal duty cycles with the idling. Yeah, it can definitely be wear and tear. So, good morning. God, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Thank you guys for joining us. Now we got a recommendation. What do I recommend? What do I recommend for the oil filter? I would go OEM. If OEM's not available, then what the OEM carries is usually reliable. If you asked about extended oil changes, as I mentioned before, I don't recommend them too often without having an oil analysis done. So I hopefully that information helps you, because not having an oil analysis can be very risky. We had a guy that viewer, he said I think he said Blackstone, where you can just mail your oil off, and you can also add on to the oil filter manifold, oil coolant manifold. My apology, oil coolant manifold. You can add on a valve, so it's a sample valve that you open up so that you can, of course, get you a sample out of there. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. Start this Monday off strong. So yeah, if you're gonna do extended oil changes, do an oil analysis at the end of your oil change, because you want the most miles on that oil when you get that reading, so you can get an accurate reading. And I don't know if you saw the photo that we shared, and I saw that they shared it twice, but we shared a photo of a oil filter that had the metallic on it. And that's just another reason why you want to be careful when you're running extended oil changes, because if you if you can find signs of metal, then you want to find it before you can actually find it visually. Because when you find it visually, that means that there's already a lot of metal wear that's happened. And when that happens, basically you're going to have to either replace the mains, which is minimal in replacing the mains. But if you catch it lightly in your oil analysis, you may still have to replace your bearings, or if you start doing your intervals more closely, then maybe you can avoid having to change your mains. But either way, it's just very healthy to get a definitely oil analysis done if you're doing extended oil changes. Also, guys, make sure you're doing you're replacing your coolant, man, because your coolant does a lot of work. And a lot of people overlook their cooling system, especially now when it's so hot outside, that you're actually creating a little bit more pressure with this heat, and you're putting a little bit more strain on your cooling system. So with heat, things expand. So if you have coolant hoses that are just falling out of their clamps or just looking really bad, trucks over 500,000 miles that haven't had any coolant flush or haven't had a coolant service, make sure to try to get that scheduled in, because 300,000 miles is what I would suggest on coolant. You can buy coolant strips online. You can buy them from Amazon, so you can test your coolant to see what it looks like. But even if your coolant tests out fine, inspect your coolant hoses. Make sure everything doesn't look out of the ordinary. You don't want hoses looking too dried up and crispy, because those are the ones that are going to give. And as I mentioned before in some of my other videos, some of these hoses are plastic, so definitely keep an eye on all that. Talking still about DPFs, I covered changing out those filters at 400K. That baking and blowing is no longer authorized. I mean, it's authorized, but it's not acceptable. So say, for example, and the reason why they say that is, for example, if you have a one box replaced and you want a warranty on it, and now we warranty our parts as well. So if you get a one box from us, it's warranted. What warranty is going to check to do, especially if it's a high mileage, is to see if the DPF's been replaced and what the process is. So showing all this information, hey, this has been replaced. This has been replaced. Then that would be acceptable and valid as a fault on the one box. But what they're saying is, and I've seen a lot of some videos that it was just like a test video that they sent out, and it just shows the difference of what a bake and blow is from the process of the whole rebuilding the filter or redoing the whole filter. And it's a more extent process, and with baking and blowing, it's more in depth than a bake and blow. And what they've shown is with bake and blowing, there's always some soot still packed at the bottom of that filter, which can cause some issues down the road, cause your filter to still do regens, and it could damage your one box. So that's one reason why changing out the filter completely with the filter from the dealer or from your parts supplier, OEM parts supplier, is definitely gonna. I was just checking the comments. I see the comments coming in. I see guys talking about deleting. I knew someone was gonna mention that. Guys, trust me, deleting is not the answer. It's a very complex system that was engineered to be tamper proof. You can get away with some of it on some of the older models, but it's going to cost you like the same amount when it comes to changing out hardware like manifolds and turbos. A lot of those modifications aren't not only it's illegal, but it's not available for the newer models. So none of the parts are available to do those correct modifications. So that's why it's not ideal to do this for your truck, because replacing a one box, yes, it can be expensive, but a $25 or $1,500, whatever they're charging for their hag deletes, can probably last you a little bit. But at the end, you're looking at the investment of the truck, and if it goes out premature, which we see all the time from low power, scuff liners, something valve issues with the valves. If you go back on any of my other videos or any of my other lives, there's other shops that has shared their experience as well. Not only other shops, but other owners that had, hey Adam, I got a low power problem. And sure enough, if we go into when I went into like, hey, what'd you do? Of course, a delete was done. So if you look at the information, it's there. You know, I know that some of these guys are getting away with deletes, and because of the older model, they may last a little longer. But these newer model trucks are not as easy. Appreciate everybody that's joined us. I'm gonna wrap it up here shortly. If you guys want to add anything, make sure to let me know. But appreciate everybody that's joined us. I hope you guys enjoyed this information. If you guys are in the DFW area and you need service, you can call us at 972-225-3017. We got a friendly staff up front that's ready to service anybody that needs any of your purposes or any of your needs. Our technicians are not, guess in the field, you would say a greenhorn, which is somebody that's new in the industry, that they are basically learning on your truck. That's not the case with us. We've got a lot of experience. All our technicians, even when it comes down to an oil change, you're basically getting a technician. You know, there's classes of technicians. There's A, B, and C. And most of the time in my shop, you're going to get an A technician. These are, even if sometimes it's a PM, you're getting a guy that rebuilds engines that's doing PMs. And the setup that we have, we're able to put the trucks overhead. Not a lot of shops are doing that. But we're doing this. You get a better look up under the truck on what's going on and better access. It could be very challenging to get up under these trucks if you're doing it on the ground. And we've done it for years. We have done it for years. And thankfully, we're able to raise these trucks up and save you guys some more time when it comes to getting service done. So I hope you guys help us keep moving forward with the channel, with the shop. I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate everybody that's joined us. If you guys got any feedback, just let me know, and we'll work on changes or whatever we need to do to try to meet everybody's expectations. So please help me out. He's got what kind of engine is it? I got a comment here about an error code. Let me know what kind of engine. If it's a T60, that's a Kenworth, so it's probably going to either be a Cummins or PACCAR. Yeah, guys, so everybody that's joined us today, thank you very much. I've had some other comments come in that I wanted to cover. I did cover the comments that were on the channel about the aftermarket different softwares available, guys. I did want to mention that the software that I mentioned in the video, and I did mention this earlier, is that software is a pro level. And you may not need that software. You may not need that level of software. So Detroit offers a lower version of that, so you can save some money on there. Volvo is not as expensive, which is PTT, Power Tech Tool. All of the other ones are going to be around the same price. PACCAR is around the same price. Cummins around the same price. But you get a lot of stuff. You get a lot of information with these licenses. And I understand nobody wants to carry multiple licenses. It can get pricey, but to service these trucks, this is what you need. We have multiple licenses for not just one, not just for, say, for example, we have multiple licenses for Detroit. We have multiple licenses for Volvo. We have to get multiple licenses because we troubleshoot so much with these, not only after treatment systems, but for example, we can find out if you have low compression for an engine rebuild. We can find out if you have issues with your transmission, with the automatic systems. You can do a lot of troubleshooting, especially even if it's not even with your after treatment system. As I mentioned before, if we see compression tests, or if we see low pressure in certain areas, or different differences in sensors, this is all an indication that something's going on. But we can either check the sensor out, double check the sensor, make sure everything looks good before changing out big parts, and it's definitely save you some money. So that's not a big deal. If you guys are I saw one comment that mentioned the tow bill could actually be more than that sometimes. For some reason, I did see an article about it was an article about how much these tow truck drivers were charging in some of these areas. and some of them were really high, which would probably be the same amount as a license. I don't know. I don't know how often. I know it's not ideal to get towed, and I don't know why they are able to do that. It's happened to pretty much anybody that owns a truck when it comes to tow trucks. But everybody that's still on, thanks for joining us. Let me know what else I can cover for you guys. I have a couple questions. I had a couple questions come in earlier that I missed. Yeah, so the softwares that they're using here, I had one comment they were talking about, and this is the one that I didn't want to mention in the video, was the OTR performance reset tool. That was really the one that I wouldn't recommend, and I didn't want to single them out, but I just see a lot of advertisement on what they were advertising to drivers about just clearing that code out, and just to clear out the derate. Again, I wanted to explain to you that the way that the ECM, or the computer that runs the engine, is programmed it's going to read these different sensors, and if there is an error in the sensor, sometimes the way that they're set up is they're going to wait till it happens over time before triggering a fault, and that's just the way that they're programmed. So what these reset tools do is basically reset the computer, or reset that counter, and trick the computer into saying that everything's good, everything's been reset. So if you do see these faults, you ignore them until this amount of time. That's how counters work. So when you're doing a reset tool, and you use a reset tool you're resetting that counter, of course. When you reset that counter, but the problem's not fixed, for example, if you have a clogged sensor and you're still over fueling, if you have something going on with your after treatment system, you got a clogged DOC or a clogged DPF, and you keep pushing, you keep packing, you keep putting more soot onto this system, you have an EGR valve that's acting up, just clearing that code and keep it moving. If it's going to get you off the side of the road, I understand, but just don't use it as, hey, I'm just going to keep resetting. We've had a guy, I remember running a fleet of Volvos, and this is just an example of how they would maintain their equipment, and he would basically instruct his drivers on how to bypass the system. And yeah, okay, say for example you're up north and you want to come all the way back down to your hometown to get your truck worked down because you don't want to have to stay anywhere. That mileage coming from down there, even if sometimes they'll come loaded with the bypass, and you're basically just causing more damage to the system, because yes, the filter clogs up the engine. Yes, we all know this, okay? But these engines are mandated to be put on there, are mandated by the feds to be put on there. So, and they're not going anywhere. They're either going to be added onto them with what we mentioned before on the different add-ons that they're going to be doing. But they're not going anywhere. I mean, if you want to eliminate them and risk the life of your engine for the extended amount of time, then that's a risk that anybody is free to take. I'm just sharing you information on how you can kind of avoid that. But this is just good information that I want to share with you guys. The OTR is, like I mentioned, is not something that I'm a big fan of. But as I would mention, software coming from the manufacturer is going to be the most accurate, up-to-date information. So I hope you guys, I see people kind of, advertising on my channel here with comments of other shops. Guys, don't use my channel to advertise other shops. If those shops want to put themselves out there, they can put their work out there to get noticed. But we're an honest shop as well. We do everything OEM. We've tried shortcuts. We tried different things to avoid either time. But it's not. A lot of times when you bring a truck in the shop, of course, it hasn't been taken apart since it's been manufactured. So you have a truck that's been built with 500,000 miles ago that's been all over the country, and now we have a problem. The last thing we want to do is open this engine. That's the last thing we want to do is open it. But of course, if there's problems that we need to address, then we have to open it. Then that's just the steps that we need to take to repair this engine to keep it moving for more years to come. The thing I want to keep in mind is, what would like for you guys to keep in mind is, it's kind of like remodeling a house. You take down this wall and put another wall. Okay, yeah, I think it's going to take me that long. Okay, with the road grime and everything, you can have a bolt break, you can have a bolt strip anywhere. Of course, we practice to try to avoid any of that, but it could just a strip or broken bolt would probably take. Oh man, it's hard to even put how much delay that puts into a repair. Okay, and then you factor in parts arriving or trying to get the hold of right parts and availability of parts. I know that said it's more fluid now, but now with these newer trucks, they're changing their transmissions. You got Volvo making their own transmission. You have PACCAR making their own transmission. You have Cummins making their own transmission. Detroit making their own transmission. So different generations after this model comes out. So now you got a different style clutch that doesn't fit from the last year model. So it can be time consuming. And the reason why I bring up clutches as well, because we've seen where trucks have come in with premature clutch failures that just recently had clutch replacements, and it was due to the incorrect clutch being put in. If you have a automatic slack adjuster, I meant a hydro, like a hydro clutch. So you have not a manual, like a manual clutch lever is going to be a manual rod coming down from the foot lever. These are older trucks. A lot of them don't do this no more, but it's a manual rod going down to the transmission, and that manual rod, you would make it longer or shorter to take the play out of the throw out bearing. Okay, so now it's hydraulic. All of it's hydraulic. Newer trucks are all hydraulic. Cascadia, Volvo, everybody's going hydraulic. Now the difference with hydraulic is when that throw out bearing on the clutch, the throw-out bearing is made on the clutch. Once it starts working its way back, that's when you have a clutch that's wearing. In that case, when you have a manual rod, that manual rod would use a manual adjusting clutch, because instead of adjusting the rod, if you would feel the play in the pedal, then you would go down and manually adjust that throw-out bearing to get closer to that clutch body, which would take the play out of the fork. Okay, that's how a manual one works. With a hydraulic setup, when that pilot bearing or that throw-out bearing starts working its way back like this, and that play starts happening on that clutch lever, with the hydraulic system, it's just going to bring more fluid to compensate for that movement. So you're not going to feel it in the pedal. Okay, so that's why it's important to use an automatic adjusting clutch. Okay, it's an automatic self-adjusting clutches. Solo clutch is basically what they call it. There's so many different names for the different parts that we use, but solo clutch is basically what you're going to use on a system that got a hydraulic clutch lever. So that right there is very important, because if you do the opposite and you don't put the right parts, then you can have a premature failure. You can have a clutch that's coming out, and your hydraulic clutch lever has compensated all this space. And hey, but I just had my clutch done not too long ago. Well, that's what happens. Now with these auto shift systems and automated shifts, let me make sure I say that right, because a lot of people go crazy if you say the wrong word. So anyway, the automated systems are still the same way. They're still clutch levers. These clutch levers are now automated. They're either electronically controlled or they're controlled by air. So now instead of the driver using the actual clutch lever, these are the clutch pedal to move the clutch lever. These are being moved automated now. And now the shifting is the same way. So these are like manual boxes. They're like manual transmission boxes, but now they put the shifter that you used to do up here. Now that's automated with an electronic or air controlled arm, mostly electronic. Now the clutch is being engaged and disengaged electronically. All this, that's how they're making their systems. That's why some people freak out when I say automatic systems because they're not really automatic. They're automated. They're really manual systems that are being controlled, automated, so that's why they're not, a really automatic system setup. But I hope this information was useful, guys. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up. I'm going to get on here again shortly. I'll try to keep you more consistent. You can let me know what you guys would like me to cover. I appreciate everybody that's joined us today. I'm sorry if I didn't get across everybody's comments. I'm going to be covering more information later on. Guys, if you're in the DFW area and you need service, you can call us at 972-225-3017 to schedule an appointment. We have a friendly staff that's ready to serve you guys. So guys, make sure to check us out. If you guys are watching us later on, make sure to hit that like and make sure to subscribe to us so you're notified when we go live. Again, I got some more content coming out. We're shooting some videos this weekend, so we're gonna have some new content coming out. So make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button, guys. Until next time, you guys be safe out there. Stay cool. And make sure that you're running that AC. It can get really hot out there, guys. So be safe out there. Take your time. And